Live from Ken's 5, this is Great Day SA with your host, Bridget Smith, featuring Eileen Tevis, Paul Morellis with weather, and Natalie Tejeda.
And speaking of encounters...
Well, the reason we asked the question about all the flights is because, listen, if you are a person who travels, then you probably have a lot of random encounters all day long, throughout the day.
Have you ever had an encounter?
You know, this is the interesting thing. We're talking about that on the show this morning, Random Encounters. We have a wonderful author in studio, and her name is Kristin Kaufman, and she's got a fascinating book out called Is This Seat Taken? Random Encounters That Can Change Your Life. And so we thought about the fact that in an airport, it is likely that you will meet people that, you'll never see again in life.
Right.
So,
Paul,
Paul,
stick in your mind, though.
some do happen.
I don't know their names, but I remember them from time to time.
Yes, I've had a random encounter. As a matter of fact, very recently, I was in Los Angeles, and this gentleman offered to give me a ride someplace. Yeah, well,
okay.
Well, and he wasn't a cab driver; he was a car driver, and I was in transit from one place to another, and my boyfriend said, "Yeah, that's a good idea. Go with him." And he called him, and they had
You didn't know this guy?
No, didn't know him.
Okay.
But his name was Mohammed, and I got to tell you, getting in the car with Mohammed was a life-changing experience for me. And
wow.
It was so incredible, the conversation we had. I was kind of having a crazy day and just thinking about a lot of things, and he was so unbelievably encouraging in the car that I had my iPhone and I started rolling on him. I was like, somebody's got to know about this guy.
But anyway,
yeah, here's a little bit. See if you can understand it.
Okay.
My destiny not be a millionaire or trillionaire, no. My destiny is simple guy and easy.
So Mohammed is saying to me, listen, my destiny is not to be a millionaire or a trillionaire. He says, I am put on this earth every day so that when people get into my car, I can encourage them and inspire them. He moved his family here to Los Angeles from Pakistan. And he was just talking about, he said, heaven is wherever you are. It doesn't matter if you're in the Bahamas, if you're on the south side of Chicago.
Las Vegas.
He says you're happy. And he went on for like 30 minutes. I mean, like when it was time for me to get out, I didn't even want to get out. I just wanted to ride around with Muhammad. And in fact, I was so encouraged by what he had to say that I have kept in touch with him. And he is also friends. This is how funny this is. Apparently, he's had this kind of influence on other people. Come to find out, Muhammad is friends with Bill Clinton and Colin Powell and other people that he's driven. Yes, and they stay in touch with him and do things for his family, and he was just like a ray of sunshine, and I thought, was that a random encounter, or was I supposed to
You were meant to be there, maybe?
Meant to meet Muhammad?
Right. Now, wouldn't it be great if we had more Mohammeds out there inspiring people and lifting people up?
Perhaps we do. I mean, that's what we're talking about this morning. I mean, have you ever sat next to a stranger on an airplane or met somebody in a restaurant and you wonder, how random is this encounter? Well, we are delighted this morning to have Kristin Kaufman here. She's the author of Is This Seat Taken? Come on up, Kristin. We're glad to have you. Yes, good to see
Kristin,
you.
good to see you.
So happy to meet you.
Kristin, you have a seat. You look beautiful this morning, by the way.
Thank you.
What a great topic, Kristin.
Isn't it great?
Yes.
I love this story about Muhammad.
Isn't it great?
That's the coolest story.
Yes, and I want to tell you more about it in just a minute, but we want to go to our quiz call-up because we do want to send someone to the San Antonio Zoo. So let's hang out here and give our quiz of the day one more time before we...
Quiz of the day. And here's one of the tickets that you will get to go to the zoo. But you got to get it right, Monica. Monica's on the line. How are you doing, Monica?
Hi.
Good morning, Monica.
Monica, do you feel confident, or did you just guess at this? Either way, you're gonna get it if you get it right. What'd you do? Did you guess?
Oh, it's 28,000.
It is. It is
Okay, all right.
28,000 people take flights in the United States every day, and this is from the Transportation Authority. So we got that.
Way to
That's a lot
go,
of
Monica.
people. A chance to have a random encounter, which is why Kristin Kaufman is here. Welcome back again. We were talking about the fact that, there are all sorts of opportunities in the day to have random encounters. I want to ask you first, what got you inspired to write a book like this?
Well, very much like your experience with Muhammad.
Yeah.
When I was a global executive traveling around the world and traveling a lot of those 28,000 flights, I would meet these random people. And a lot of times they were people that would sit next to me on the airplane. Other times, frankly, they were bartenders, or they were people in a bar, or they were just people that you would meet randomly, at like a taxi driver.
Yeah.
So I really felt like these people had a voice, and I wanted to give them a voice. And I don't believe that any of those incidental meetings are incidental, by the way.
I'm starting to believe
So I think
you.
that there are no accidents. So those people that crossed my path, I believe, crossed my path for a reason. And that's why I wanted to capture that in a collection of stories.
That's awesome. So you would always keep your mind open. You're one of those people that didn't mind talking with the person because I know some people that just sit there and they do not open
Don't want to
their
be
eyes.
bothered.
They don't
Right.
want to do, are they missing out?
Well, okay. So first of all, it's not like every time I was receptive to it because let's be real about it. There were other times where I wanted to put my headphones on and read My People magazine like it was Barron's Weekly, like it was the most important thing in the whole world.
Yeah, you don't want to be bothered.
Right. And then there are other times when you are present in the moment and you are receptive to the people that cross your path. It's amazing the wisdom that you can bestow from them.
I would totally agree with that.
Yeah, and so you continue to put this together, seeing as how you figure, well, other people have to be having this experience as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I kept a journal so for years and years and years, my entire life actually. And so it wasn't like all of a sudden I sat down and said, let's just write these stories. I had been keeping a journal for years of these little vignettes, these little stories of people. And then when I decided to finally compile it, actually it was hard to cull down to 25. You know, here are the 25 that I really want to tell about. So.
And then you realize, boy, there have been so many.
There have been so many.
Yeah, I was having this conversation in our meeting yesterday with our producers, and I was telling them about the driver Mohammed, and they said, Bridget, it's interesting because Kristin also had an experience with a cab driver, and they said, well, maybe it's just cab drivers. And I said, no, I've gotten in the cab with many drivers who don't, go on for an hour. It was a special encounter.
Totally.
Was yours as well? What happened in your encounter?
Well, the one I think you're speaking about is the gentleman in New York City. I mean, how many of us have ever been in a cab in New York City, right? When are you not in a cab in New York City?
Right.
And this gentleman was actually from Ukraine, and he was telling me about his story, somewhat like Muhammad, actually. Wasn't quite as spiritual as your story about Muhammad.
Right.
But it was about how he had chosen to come to America at a very young age. He had to learn a new language. He had to start over, basically. And how he was really kind of a Horatio Algier of, you know, his time. And it was a marvelous story. And frankly, I was the selfish American who was in the back seat, you know, hot, right, trying to get somewhere, right, because they never turn on the air in New York. And I was like, please turn on the air, but they didn't. And I had this attitude. And then when I got out of the cab, my attitude had totally shifted because of just the experience and the conversation.
Yes, it wasn't just a random encounter.
Right.
Well, stay tuned because we're going to have more with Kristin. We're going to talk about how your random encounter, the next one you have, it may be life-changing. We're going to tell you how to be present in the moment to experience it. And log on to Facebook and tell us if you've had a random encounter with a stranger. Did it change your life? We want to hear about it. More with Kristin when we come back. Yes. Welcome back, everybody. Well, we live in a world that is just moving so fast. Could you be missing random encounters that could make a difference in your life? Perhaps. This morning we're talking with the author of Is This Seat Taken? Kristin Kaufman has written just a fascinating book.
What an amazing topic.
It is an amazing topic. And, you know, is there a way, Kristin, that people can be more receptive to having encounters that are meaningful? Are there questions to consider?
Well, I think, you know, a couple of things. You know, you teed up the segment by saying we're running so fast, you know, and I call it being on the hamster wheel.
Yes.
We're on this hamster wheel, and I like to encourage people to be on a Ferris wheel. And to be like you would be on a Ferris wheel, where you're open to possibly what's around you. You know, I go into terminals now at the airport, and everyone has their head in a BlackBerry or an iPhone. No one is talking to anyone. I mean, it's quiet. It's so quiet in an airport terminal. Put down your BlackBerry or iPhone just for 5 minutes and just see what happens.
Right.
I mean, that would be an encouragement, you know, for us to do.
Yeah.
Because one thing I think about, how many opportunities you are missing.
Yeah.
You know, because when you're closed and isolated, you only feed back into yourself.
Right.
But you're missing out all kinds of opportunities out there.
Right. You know, I think there were a couple of points when I wrote the book. You know, one was, yes, to be present in the moment and to be aware that perhaps these incidental encounters are really not incidental at all, and there's a reason why somebody comes and sits next to you on an airplane, and to be open to that.
That's true.
The other piece was, you know, that we're all connected. You know, in this human condition that we're in, I call it Earth School. You know, we're all connected. There's not, none of us are alone, to your point. We actually are all part of the same dance if we're just open to that. So.
Here's some of the questions that you touch up on in the book, and we want to do 3 right at one time and kind of have you go over them. You said questions to consider for people to be more present in the moment. Ask yourself, what behaviors and thought patterns help you overcome fear? Also, what do you want to pursue but you're afraid to take the plunge? And have you ever been an incidental person in someone else's life? Are you recognizing an impact that you might make in a brief encounter. Be aware, you say.
That's right. And so at the end of every chapter, Bridget, I had questions to consider relevant to the story that, you know, that at the end of the chapter. And so there are questions that are very pertinent to the story. Those are just 3. And I do think that the people that we meet oftentimes can help us to be more observant about ourselves. What is holding me back? You know, why haven't I pursued the dream that I always wanted to pursue? You know, there have been people in my course of these travels that have actually been inspiring to me for me to do what I've done, right? This book, for example. I mean, I probably would never have written this book hadn't I met some of those people. They completely changed my life. So,
do you feel that between our ears that's really what holds us back is our own fears and what's in our mind?
Right. I mean, I think that we tell ourselves stories. You know, we call it self-talk. You know, these self-talks, and we can either change our voices, you know, change our voices of our self-talk, where we're encouraging ourselves, we're releasing ourselves, we're allowing us to be who we really are to be, as opposed to perhaps listening to a story that's less than what I should be doing, what I've been told I should be doing, as opposed to what potentially I could be doing.
Yes.
And so that's I think where you were going with that.
Well, and one of the things that I find so interesting is that, you know, in our daily lives, when we've got, you know, troubles or decisions to make, we go to family, we go to friends, people who know us, they've heard the story a million times.
Yes.
They offer advice based on what they know about us. There's something fresh about talking to a stranger who's giving you a perspective just from their own idea. That's what I remember being in the car with Muhammad. I thought, does he know me?
Right. Well, and you know, the third point of the book, you know, was I believe, this is just my own personal philosophy, that we are here to teach each other, we are here to learn from each other, and we are here to serve. And so if you have that in your head, wow, what could I be teaching somebody through these incidental encounters? What could I be learning from the 2 of you this morning? What I learned from you this morning about your story about Muhammad. I would never have learned that had I not been here, been receptive to it, and been present, right?
So don't spend so much time just in our iPads and our,
Yes, or our weather centers.
Or our weather centers,
look at the world.
Oh, look.
And a bright new perspective.
Smell the flowers.
Kristin, what a fascinating read, I'm telling you. You guys, if you wanna meet Kristin, if you wanna pick up a copy of this book, this is a great gift idea. This is a great read for, you know, the summer on the beach. There's a book signing tonight, today, I'm sorry, at Barnes & Noble from 5:30 to 7 p.m. That's at the San Pedro Crossing location, 321 Northwest Loop, 410 Suite 104. Kristin Kaufman. It's no accident that you're here today, and we're sharing this moment with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here.
I've loved this.
We've loved having you. Well, coming up next,